Hello everybody, today I want to talk about my rating system. As you know, I have been doing some book reviews on here and I feel like I should maybe explain how I approach book reviews and especially how I approach rating books. So personally I feel like just a rating on a book doesn't really say a lot because I feel like every person rates books differently. Maybe they have a different approach in the way they rate different kinds of books. At least that's the case for me. So yeah, I just want to clarify how I personally approach it. Now obviously I use the 5-star scale. I do that because I mostly track my reading on Goodreads and they have that 5-star system on there. I usually just use the system on the platform that I'm using to track my media. TV shows and movies, I use IMDb, and that's why I use the 10-star system they have. Let's start with actually what 3 stars is, because for me personally that's really where most of the books will end up. I feel like the more I read, 3-star for me means really an average book. I know a lot of people say that 3 stars is like a good book, but for me personally I think 3 stars means it's an average book. So basically when I start out reading a book, that's basically the baseline that I have. And yeah, if a book doesn't make me feel good or bad in either way, or if it makes me feel good in certain aspects and bad in certain aspects equally, that's what a 3-star book is. If somebody really likes that kind of book, I think I would recommend it to them, but I wouldn't say it's a recommendation in general. And then everything below 3 stars basically means for me that I did not enjoy the book. 2 stars basically means I had a lot of issues with the book and maybe I enjoyed some aspects, but they weren't enough to make me really enjoy the book. And then 1 star basically means that the book was really, really bad. I have yet to give out a 1 star. So I think 1 star is really something that will be really where I feel like this book really didn't do anything enjoyable. That's 1, 2, and 3 stars. And the way I personally approach it, I track these like full stars on Goodreads. But for me personally, I also like to have like sub-levels. So I also do like half stars and sometimes even quarter stars. When I write a review on Goodreads, I just mention where exactly it lands. And then for my rating, I just basically round it down. So basically, if I give something 2.5 stars, I will just put 2 stars, and then in the review I'll write 2.5. So the closer you get to 3, the more enjoyable it is, and it gets to the average. And if you go over 3, it means like I start enjoying the book quite a bit. 4 stars is a book that I really enjoyed. I feel like it had some flaws, but despite the flaws, I feel like it was still an enjoyable book, and I would really recommend a lot of people to read the book. Examples for 4-star books for me were Elantris and The Last Wish, which both I had some issues with, which I went over in my reviews for those books, but I still really enjoyed the books in total. Elantris is really the borderline 4 stars that I would give. I think Elantris is something that may have dropped down to 3.5, but I gave it 4 stars because I feel like the redeeming qualities of that book really made me kind of forgive the negatives that I felt throughout the book. One book that I actually ended up giving 3.75 out of 5 stars is Northern Lights, which is the first book in his Dark Materials. And that's a book where in my review you'll see that I really had a lot of issues with the book. Like I really enjoyed a lot of parts of that book, but I had certain points where I really thought I might not finish the book, and I usually don't have that in the book. So that's why, although at the end I felt like it was a 4-star or even above, I ended up giving it 3.75 because for like 100 to 150 pages, it really made me feel like I wouldn't want to continue with the book. That's the kind of issue where I would say, okay, this isn't even a 4-star. It falls even further down than that. And then obviously between 4 and 5, it means like, okay, this is getting into a territory where I feel like even if it has flaws, those flaws didn't really bother me. So basically a 5-star book is something that I really enjoyed, and I can see that it has some flaws maybe, but the flaws didn't really impact my enjoyment at all. And just in general, my scale is very based on enjoyment. So a 5-star book for me doesn't mean something that's like really an all-time favorite. So that it doesn't mean that if I enjoy a book and I feel like it had flaws, but I didn't really have an issue with the flaws, if that makes sense, I will end up giving it 5 stars. but 5 stars for me also is a spectrum. So 5 stars can be like a book that I feel like is an all-time favorite, but it can also be something that I feel like I really enjoyed for what it was. And yeah, I do that because I feel like if I don't do that, then a lot of books won't even have a chance to get 5 stars from me. So, for example, some books that I gave 5 stars is the first 3 A Song of Ice and Fire books. Those are books that I would say are all-time favorite books because I just love the world. I love how the books are paced. I love how many characters we have. So yeah, that's a book that I would really say that's something that I gave 5 stars, but that's something that I would consider an all-time favorite. But other books that I have given 5 stars is, for example, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first book in Mistborn. That book I had some issues with. I talked about them in my review, but I really enjoyed that book despite those issues. And yeah, that's something that actually I would say it was quite close to being an all-time favorite. I feel like it's not quite on the level of the A Song of Ice and Fire books, but I feel like it would be unfair to really set the bar that high for a 5-star book. That's why I ended up giving it 5 stars, because despite the fact that I saw some issues there, I didn't mind those issues at all. And then some more books I gave 5 stars is like The Hunger Games and Catching Fire, which are the first 2 Hunger Games books. I feel like those are books that if I would really put this tagline of all-time favorite for 5-star books, I feel like Hunger Games and Catching Fire would never even have a shot to get a 5-star, because those aren't really the kind of stories that I personally really prefer to read. So for me, I think fantasy books are way more likely to get the 5 stars or to be an all-time favorite for me. If I would put 5 stars as high as all-time favorite, I feel like books like these would never have a chance to get there. But I feel like they really deserved it, because despite the fact that YA dystopian isn't my favorite genre, I feel like it deserves to have a shot to get a 5 stars from me. And I really enjoyed those books. I felt like they were really fun reads. They weren't as deep as I would have liked, and they didn't focus on certain aspects that I would prefer, that something like A Song of Ice and Fire really focuses on. But I think expecting that from that kind of a book would be unfair. You can see 5 stars isn't really a very specific thing. It's something more that comes from enjoyment for me, and something that is an all-time favorite you could say is beyond 5 stars, if that even makes sense. For example, if I ever end up doing tier lists for books, I actually did one tier list for books. If I do tier lists for books, so you have S, A, B, C, D, E, F levels. I would say the D level would be 3 out of 5 stars. That means basically that's where I would say that's an average book. That's something like a passing grade. And then E would be 2, F would be 1 star. And then I would say A is actually 5 stars, or something that maybe between 4.5 and 5 stars. And S tier would really be where I would put those all-time favorite books. So for example, I would put the first 3 A Song of Ice and Fire books in S tier, but I would put something like Hunger Games and Catching Fire in A tier, despite the fact that both are 5 stars. If D is 3 stars and A is 5 stars, that would mean that C tier is basically around 4 stars, so something like Elantris would probably land in C tier. B tier would basically be something between 4 and 4.5 stars. So yeah, that's how I would approach tier lists, kind of. Obviously, this isn't as fixed as I said. That's just a way to explain how I would rate books. If you see me giving out 5 stars, just know that it's basically something I really enjoyed, but really focused in my reviews on what I'm saying rather than what rating I put on the book, because I feel like really the thoughts are what matters, and just a rating in itself in general doesn't say too much. And I have actually been thinking about not mentioning my rating for books in reviews. I don't know if that, let me know in the comments if you feel that makes sense. I may just say it out loud and stop like writing it on screen how I rated it, because I feel like that can be quite distracting, and it can maybe give people a wrong like sense of whether I like the book or not. So I feel like a lot of people feel like 3 stars means a really good book. Some people even feel like 3 stars is a really bad book. And I feel like 3 stars for me is an average book. So I think just because of that, there is this like weird dissonance kind of where people don't agree on how to rate books, I think it makes sense maybe not to really focus on just the plain number really, but rather to focus on the review. That's how I feel about this. That's how I rate books. Let me know down below how you rate books and whether you think the way I do it makes sense. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, leave a subscribe, hit the notify bell. Check out my other videos. Some of them should have popped up on the screen right now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.